it's really alien to me, but apparently I have to do that. So if I shout, tone it down, Jeanette, you're shouting. So we'll start with any apologies from anybody. I've got some from Joan.
Yeah, and apologies also from Councillor Melvin Mile and Councillor David Williams, and also from the leader, Councillor Hugh Evans. He's had to attend an urgent meeting this morning with the Welsh Government and WLGA.
Yeah.
Chair, can I give Councillor Rachel Flynn's apologies?
We had a really good discussion at the pre-meeting on Tuesday, and we formulated some really valid questions. I've got to say a thank you to Reese, who I thought was really helpful with the questions, because there were so few of us in attendance, I'm afraid. Any declarations of interest? None. I've got no urgent matters, really. Well, I have got an urgent matter, but I'll come to that at the end. Is that all right, Rhian?
An urgent matter is defined by law. It's something.
Oh, right. So it's not then. It's not an urgent matter. It's something I want to discuss at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Under any other business. Okay. I can do that, can't I?
Yes. You may want to discuss it perhaps under the work programme, because we haven't got any other business on the agenda. Okay,
that'll be fine. It could be not even part of the meeting, but it's something I want to run by others. Okay. I'm going to hand over now to Emrys for the minutes of the last meeting, as he kindly took the chair for me that day. Emrys, if you we can't hear you, Emrys. You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm not anymore. I'm opened up now. There we go.
Thank you.
Right, diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much. Minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of December, or actually 4th of November, I think it is. Looking at terms in terms of accuracy. Page 5. Speak out if there's anything incorrect. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Eleven. And page 12 and 13. If you're happy that they're correct, would somebody move that they're correct in a second, please? Christine Marston moving, and Pat Jones seconded. Everybody in agreement, I hope. Show of hands, please. I can see most people. There we are, thank you. Matters arising now. We'll go back now to page 4. 5, sorry. Any matters arising from page 5 that is not on the agenda today? I don't think there is anything there. But matters arising, page 6. Page 7 and 8. Page 9 and 10. That's active travel. Are there any matters arising on that? Is there anything to be said about the second decision in English, request that the council review the process utilised to implement and remove all COVID-19 active travel plan schemes in Denbighshire with a view of identifying good practice and lessons learned? Has anything come back from that, Srian? Nothing come back yet as of yet. I wouldn't expect it to be so early as this. The officers have been told what the recommendation was, so I'd imagine that they're working on it now. I think Emmeline is in on the meeting at the moment. I'm not sure whether Emmeline has anything to add. Thank you. Good morning, all. Nice to see you all. No, you're completely correct there, Rian. We've started on the work. In fact, we had started on the work sooner to review the situation and to learn our lessons and see how we can move forward. But we haven't finished that work yet. But certainly I'll be working with Mike and Ben from the team to do that and report back to the committee. Thank you. Thank you very much, Emily. Thank you. Moving on then, page 12 and 13. There aren't any matters arising there, I don't think. And with that, then I will hand the chair back now to the chair, the proper chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Emrys. Thank you very much. So we'll go to agenda item 5 now, which is the North Wales Economic Ambitions Board Q2 update report. And we have Emmeline here with us. Welcome, Emmeline. And as you know, he has been called away to another meeting. So if you'd like to start, Emmeline, we're ready.
Yes, of course, but so I'll and apologies from Graham as well, because he would have usually been here to be involved in this type of report. Apologies if it looks like I'm looking at not looking at you, but I've got 2 screens and the information is on the other screen, so it looks very strange. But I am absolutely looking at you. It's just that it looks as if I'm not.
That's fine.
It's quite a short covering report, really. So you'll see a covering report and an appendix, which is the Q2 update from the North Wales Economic Ambition Board Portfolio Office. I should say I've got James Evans here this morning, who's the Economic and Business Development Manager. So James is with us this morning as well. So this is a report really on the work of the North Wales Economic Ambition Board during Q2 for your information and consideration, really. The Portfolio Office prepares a quarterly report on the work of the board, and it circulates that report to each partner organisation. So it was previously agreed by the region and all partners that officers from the Portfolio Office, which is a regional team led by Alwen Williams, would attend Scrutiny to present the Q4 update, which would obviously be later on in the year or into next year now. And answer any questions and have a discussion and debate with members of Scrutiny on that report. So my understanding is, and I'm sure Rian will correct me, is that officers from the Portfolio Office will be attending to present that Q4 update. Q1 and Q3 reports are circulated for information, so they don't get presented to Scrutiny, and that was a regional agreement. But Q2 reports, which is this one, does get presented to Scrutiny, and that was a consistent approach across all 6 local authorities, which is this report in front of you here. So I'll try and summarise just a bit of the kind of overarching report. You'll see from the appendix it's really detailed, so there's lots of information there about all the projects within the growth deal. But just to summarise and remind everyone, really, there are several programmes in place within the North Wales Economic Ambition Board growth deal. and there's a program board set up for each of them. So each program has a board, each program has a leader assigned to that board, and Denbighshire has an officer attending each of those boards to have a Denbighshire input into it. So the programs are listed on the appendix, which is digital, low carbon energy, land and property, agriculture, food and tourism, and innovation in high value manufacturing. So those are the programs that are within the growth deal. And as I said, Denbighshire will have an officer on each of those boards that oversee those programs. So, for example, I attend the Agriculture, Food and Tourism Board. James, who's in the meeting this morning, attends the Innovation in High Value Manufacturing. Then we've got Barry Eaton attending the Digital Board. Helen Vaughan Evans attending the Low Carbon Energy Board. And then we have Angela Loftus attending the Land and Property. So we have quite senior officers attending each of those boards. And then the leader is the lead for the Land and Property Board. So that's a bit of a reminder really about how it's all kind of set up. Now you'll see also that well, actually, all Denbighshire officers meet on a quarterly basis as well. So all the Denbighshire reps as such get together on a quarterly basis to make sure that we share the information across all the boards, because some of the work will cross over. For example, digital and the work that goes on in that program board may well help other programs such as agriculture or high value manufacturing. So we meet up on a quarterly basis just to share what's going on with those boards and to have a kind of coordinated approach from Denbighshire really. So so in summary, you've got the Q2 performance reports for your information there. It is very detailed. There will be further opportunities to have a more detailed debate and discussion when the portfolio office attend for Q4. And obviously James and I are here to happy to answer questions. I'm just going to say that obviously there's lots of work, lots of detail in the programme. So James and I might not have all the answers this morning, but I will certainly give you an assurance that if any questions are raised, James and I will take them away and make sure that detailed answers are provided for anything that we can't answer this morning. So hopefully that's a bit of a quick overview of the report, and I'll hand over to you, Chair. So thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Emlyn. And we do understand with not having the leader here this morning, or Graham as well, that some of the questions may not be able to be answered, but we appreciate if you get back to us on them, because I still like us to ask the questions. I'm going to start now with Rhys. On the other day, we formulated a lot of questions. As you'll appreciate, I'm going to give priority to them that were discussed and agreed would be asked today. So Rhys, if you're ready, I'd like you to ask all your questions in one go, if you don't mind, because that will help.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. You set the bar very high for me there, saying that I was on fire in the pre-meeting. I think that fire has gone out slightly this morning.
Well, I hope not, Rhys.
Well,
I'm finding it difficult with the sound at the moment. Is anybody else?
I think Rhys is breaking up. I'm going to put your camera off, please.
There we are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, just ask the questions you think most relevant. Yeah.
I can ask them, but I can also express my disappointment that a lot of these questions are quite high-level political matters to do with what we're discussing today. So it is a disappointment that we can't ask these questions of Hugh and Graham. I notice, can I go straight to the appendix then, please? And the page numbers are a bit confused. I think it's the page 3 or page 21, depending on which numbers we're following. It talks about procurement activities, and we were quite interested to know how the Ambition Board carried out its procurement, because Denbighshire's procurement has recently had a low assurance rating. So I'm always concerned when I see procurement. That's the first question. Second question, are there difficulties in recruitment for the North Wales Ambition Board? There's a paragraph about recruitment, and that there are 3 remaining vacancies. To go on to the next page, page 22, no, we'll go past that one. I'm now looking at the overall portfolio performance, which I think is title number 4. And if we look at that, we see that no full business cases have yet been approved to date. There's a lot riding on the North Wales Ambition Board. I'm very disappointed, to tell you the truth, that there seem to be so many delays in this. I can understand because of COVID and so on, but is there any hope that any business cases will be approved shortly? The final point, final question, the number of risks. There's a column there which outlines overall performance, portfolio performance risks, and it says that 3 residual risk ratings have increased this quarter. And not only that, but there are now 2 new risks added to the risk register: revenue funding and a skills gap. So, to be honest, it's not looking good when I read the first few pages of this report. So I think those are my questions. I hope it was brief enough, Jeanette. And Emmeline, I look forward to your answers, but I fully understand if you're not able to answer all of those, that I'm sure Scrutiny will receive a written reply in due course. Diolch fawr, diolch Cadeirydd, diolch Emmeline.
Diolch fawr. Is that okay if I respond, Chair?
Yes, please, Emily.
So I will need to take the procurement question away because I honestly don't know the answer to that, and I think it'd be wrong of me to try and answer it where I don't really know the answer properly. It's not within my sphere really, but I will make sure that that gets responded to because I understand the concern. Recruitment, I am aware that the Portfolio Office have undertaken a large-scale recruitment recently. They've certainly increased the numbers of programme managers and project managers within the Portfolio Office. We've certainly met a number of those new officers as well, because they've been coming around each of the local authorities to discuss how they're going to work with us. So my understanding is that they haven't had difficulty in recruiting, and I've met a number of those new recruits recently, so it's not my understanding that they've struggled. And there's also been a welcome appointment of a new regional transport officer as well within the Portfolio Office that will help us to develop regional working on the transport side of things as well, that will sit and work closely with that growth deal team. So I'm not aware of any recruitment issues there. The overall portfolio performance around no full business cases, I understand the point, and obviously there's been it's you know, there's a massive amount of work going on in the background on these cases, and I'm aware within my own programme board that I attend, and I'm sure James might well come in afterwards, is that a number of projects have gone through first and second stages of development. So, for example, I'm not an expert in programme and project management by any stretch of the imagination, but they've certain number of projects have gone through, for example, outline business case stage, and a number of different stages before it gets to the final business case. So I know that a number of them are progressing well and are making their way through to eventually full business case stage, but it is a long process. Some are at earlier stages than others, and I know within my program board there's one in particular that's quite well advanced around the regional food business hub based within Coleg Llandrillo in Glynllifon. So I know that's progressing well as well. So I think, yes, that there are different stages, but lots of work going on in the background to get them to that full business case stage. Risks, yes, I mean, risks are overseen and analysed at every programme board for each of the programmes, and also at an overall level within the executive group that Graham would attend, and then the board that obviously Hugh attends. I think you're right that there are new risks always emerging really around the growth deal. The one in particular that I want to pick up on that you mentioned there was the skills gap. That has been a new risk that's been included there, and I know that the growth deal now have made sure that there's a regional skills partnership officer attending every program board, so digital, agri and food, high value manufacturing. They have an input now at every program board to make sure that they're picking up on any skills and partnerships needs and risks, and pulling it all together really quite carefully. So they've identified that as a new risk, but they put control measures and mitigation in place already to work on that. I don't know whether James has anything to add to that at all, but apologies for not being able to respond to the procurement question. I will make sure that gets responded to. James, have you got anything to add to that at all?
Yeah, thanks, Emlyn. Yeah, just to agree with you with what you said about the full business cases, because I'm part of the innovation program board, as Emlyn just alluded to, and yeah, agree with Emlyn. You know, they have a very certain type of methodology that they use. It's very detailed. It goes through the stages. With our program board, for instance, we've got 2 projects, quite complex academic projects led by the two universities in North Wales. And for one of them, you know, that's just got to outline business case. And, you know, all of us program board members have been involved in that, and there's been consultation and reviewing documents. And so we are making headway, but, you know, there are a number of stages that we have to get through. So just to echo what Emlyn said. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Would
you like to come back?
Yes, please. Just something that James said there at the very end. I read this report and I see a number of matters where Bangor University seem to be somewhat of, perhaps it's incorrect to say that, but they appear to be a weak link. There are staffing changes that have prevented one of their projects from proceeding. So are Bangor University fully on board with this? Because they are responsible for, I think it's the environmental technology, for example, the low carbon centre of excellence, and neither of those projects seem to be going very far. Do you have an answer to that, James, or is it an answer for the leader, possibly?
I know that their project manager has recently left. I don't know how they're getting on with the recruitment of the new project manager, but that's something that I can find out and I can report back on. But I know, you know, just taking what you said, there has been some changes there, but I can find out.
Thank you. These questions that can't be answered, will you send them to us some stage? Thank you. Okay, Emrys, you have some questions. Can't hear you, Emrys.
I've unmuted myself now. Yeah,
My questions, in fact, have they will be along the same lines exactly as what Rhys has just asked now. So I'm not going to ask those questions, obviously. So maybe I'll try and pick up some elements of those questions, possibly. If I could return to the well, let's say the resource and capacities. It's obvious looking at this report and connect this with what's just been said about the situation with Bangor University's contribution as well. It appears to me that there is there are challenges in terms of recruitment. Do we know why that this exists? Has there research been conducted or going to be conducted to see what are the reasons why we are unable to recruit? Is it a lack of people, applicants coming forward, or is it that the ones that are applying that they don't have the required qualifications? So is there a matter there for what's in place there to gain those qualifications? I think I'm thinking about MSBAC on Anglesey, that centre that's there to be able to develop workers for the future in this area. That's one question that I have. If I could turn to page 6, 28, I believe. Sorry, page 24. We're talking about full fibre in key sites and connected campuses. They're all in the red. That's a matter of concern for me. We've had fibre connections now for a number of years, and we should now be way down the line of having connected. Individual homes should now be full fibre, but whereas if we were really behind with this, but when you have a matter such as North Wales Ambition Board, with campuses, important campuses here and there, as if they're unable to be connected to each other effectively. That's a matter of concern for me, especially if you link this with the new way of working that's likely to continue now when this COVID blight has left us, or when we have to live with it. Having that connection, a good connection, it's all important. We see this with meetings in county. We're asking people to turn the cameras off so that we can be connected. Something that's basic stuff, really, for those who know how to deal with these matters. And I did have a question. Is everything okay in terms of our relationship with the board, the board's relationship with what's coming from the university? Is that relationship working efficiently? So page 11, if I could get the correct figures, it is confusing. Page 11 or 29, we're talking about key strategic sites. And there's a reference here to Bodelwyddan, that's also in red. For some reason, every time we refer to this site in Bodelwyddan, there is a huge question, there's a question mark over it at all times. And resolving this is reliant on having a local development plan, a current one in place for Denbighshire. And we know that that's way behind at the moment. And it's really a matter of concern for me that we won't see the development on this site unless something exceptional happens very soon in order to develop the site. Are there plans afoot in order to bring this out of the red to reach the green, please? And no, that's it. I think I've got them all in. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Emrys. You did well there.
Okay, am I okay to respond to that?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, my ymateb yn Gymraeg.
I responded well, sorry. The challenge of recruitment for the portfolio officer. That's, I suppose it's only right that they respond to that themselves later on. But from what I know, and looking at the report also, recruitment is a challenge, a general challenge at the moment. It's universal. You know, we as council are finding it challenging recruiting staff to some specific posts. It's a general challenge nationally at the moment, recruitment. But again, looking at the report of the appendix, they have identified that challenge specifically for project management posts, but I do know also that they're reviewing the situation at all times and working with partners to see how partners can help by using their own staff, and also to see why we are unable to recruit. But it's a challenge, a general challenge, and I can take that up with a portfolio office for them to respond further with any information that they have about specific posts there and whether there's a specific reason for that challenge. I'm not aware that there is. I think it's just a general challenge of recruitment in these times. I will ask Barry, as our officer who is on the board, the digital board, to respond to the questions about the full fibre and connected campuses. Of course, it is a 20-year long programme, the growth plan. So there's lots of work happening now in the early days, in these early years, to prepare us for the future. But I do accept the concern, that worry that these two things are in the red at the moment, and why that is. So I'll take that forward and to make sure that you get the full response to that point. Bangor University, certainly, they are a very important partner in the growth plan. They have been there from the outset, and certainly integral part of the growth deal itself and the ambition board. So again, I'm not aware that as an officer that there's any concern there in terms of partnership with Bangor University as a whole. So yeah, I can't respond any further to that. Buddelwyddan, I will make sure that you get a response in terms of the program board for Buddelwyddan, but you're spot on there. It does cross over, doesn't it, from the growth deal into the local development plan. And we are now, of course, you'll know as members that we're going through the process now of reviewing and developing the new local development plan, and we'll return to you as members with reports about Buddelwyddan and other sites in the future. COVID has, of course, made sure that we haven't been able to develop this as quickly as we would have been able to, we've wanted to, and also we have the situation now with the flooding guidelines that have been a challenge also for us to understand those. So yeah, both things will go hand in hand. Of course, Buddelwyddan has been a site that the growth deal has been interested, big interest in, and it's one of the sites that's on the shortlist for support to be able to unlock the site and make sure that the potential is realized and developed. Yeah, but I can come back to you with further comments from Angela as the link, the officer who's on that board. Hopefully that is a response to your question. Thank you, Emlyn, for those. Yes, certainly. I realize that we'll have to wait for answers to the to elements of all those questions. In fact, good to hear that there is no problem in terms of the relationship with the university. I used to attend one time myself, but it'd be a shame to think that there was anything held back because of that they're unable to recruit within the relevant departments there at the university, because that's what's suggested in the report. Could I have one additional quick question, if I may? There is funds Senedd Cymru, from Senedd, from the UK government, there's many attached to this. Is there additional assistance available from both parties, institutions now, in order for us to be able to press on with these things because of the delay? Yes, because of COVID specifically, in the main, I'd imagine, but I'm sure there are other elements as well. Going back also, once again to training and preparing people to be able to lead, to be able to assist with developing this growth plan.
Okay.
The campuses that we have,
Okay.
Glyndŵr and Bangor University.
All right, thank you. I must move us on a bit.
Yep, just the matter.
Just to respond to that, I'm not aware that there's any additional money that's going to go into the growth plan itself, but of course we always, as a council and as North Wales, we're looking to see whether we can identify funds from money from different funds, any grants, any developments where we would be able to develop skills, support businesses, and of course digital as well. So I'm not aware that there's any specific money going into the growth plan itself, which is in addition to what Welsh government and UK governments gave invested in it. But there is always opportunities, further opportunities to look for financial assistance from other places, hasn't there? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing since COVID.
Right, thank you. Right, being very patient, Christine, if you'd like to come in.
Thank you, Chair. My question is with regards to your full fibre and key sites. My interpretation of that scheme was that you would ensure that full fibre were in these key sites, and then they would consequently open up areas. I sit in a very rural area, and we are struggling to have full fibre. And I do feel that we are being left behind as a rural economy. We struggle to get open, engage with us, and when they do engage with us, they move goalposts. So schemes.
Turn your screen off for a minute, Christine. We can't hear you.
Apologies.
Okay.
I was saying about the full fibre. We are finding it difficult as a rural sort of area to get open reach to sort of quote for schemes, and then when they do, the funding is shortfalling. Is the North Wales Economic Ambition Board, is there any assistance or that they can help our rural economy in my ward to sort of kickstart these fibre schemes to ensure that Openreach delivers the fibre that we have come to expect? You know, you can see I'm struggling with my internet today, and this is for farmers who are having to do everything online. And I just feel that as a sort of area of economy that is important in Denbighshire is being left behind, and how can that be facilitated? Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Yes, no, thank you. I fully agree. Working over, full fibre internet connectivity is just even more important now than ever, isn't it, really, and will be for the future. So I certainly agree that the rural areas are even more challenged by that, aren't they? So obviously we've got our corporate plan project, which is obviously coming to an end now. That in itself was looking at what can we influence and what can we control ourselves within digital connectivity in Denbighshire. So I know that Barry and obviously Alan Smith are leading on that. So if there's any further information on that work that's been done, then we can certainly get that to you. But I understand the main question was around the growth deal. Digital is one of the priorities. It is one of the programme boards, and I will certainly ask for an update, particularly on rural areas, because I know there is a huge amount of work, and it's actually one of our previous officers in Denbighshire, Stuart Whitfield, who's the programme manager for that programme itself. So he will have lots of experience around the challenges that Denbighshire faced when he was working in the economic and business development team himself. So so I'm sure he'll be very much cited on that. But I will get an update on particularly the rural challenges and how the growth deal will be supporting rural areas, because I remember when the growth deal was being developed, there was very much a conversation around this can't be just about towns and and coastal areas. It is very much around what can it provide to rural areas as well. So I'll make sure I made a note of that, and we will get a response back to you. Apologies that I can't answer it directly this morning. So
thank you, Emily. Before I bring Reese back, I just want to check any other members have raised their hands, have got a question. No, haven't missed anybody. So yes, Reese, come back.
Very briefly, thank you, Chair. I'm just getting warmed up now. I can recognise a fudge when I see one. Now, at least 3 people on this committee also happen to sit on strategic planning, the LDP. Whenever we talk about Bodil Withen on the LDP, we're basically told that it's nothing to do with us because it sits at a higher level and that it's a strategic site. And yet here in this document, strategic site Bodil Withen, one of the rationales behind its status as read is that the current local development plan is being reviewed. So the excuse is being made here that nothing is happening because of the LDP, and on the LDP we're told that nothing has happened because it's a strategic site. So I got a request for Emlyn. If Emlyn could possibly get Councillor Mark Young, the chair of the strategic planning, together with Hugh, the leader, and Angela Loftus, and could we please, in the next few months, sort out exactly who is responsible for the Bodil Withen site? Is it the LDP or is it the fact that it's a strategic site and above our pay grade? Actually, dwi'n gofyn I ti,
So I'm asking you, Emlyn, can you arrange that? Because I do know that we all require the answer to that. Thank you very much, Emlyn. Thank you, Chair.
I'm laughing, Reese, because that was my one and only big question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I won't say anything for the rest of the meeting.
That's fine. We're on the same waveband there, so
yep.
Okay.
Chair, can I respond to that? So I will certainly discuss that with Mark and with the leader. There will be a detailed report coming to the strategic planning group around Bodil Withen, but I understand your point is that actually they are inextricably linked, aren't they? Both of them really, and they rely on each other to some degree. So we need a clear position on that. I understand the frustrations. Obviously, we've had changes over recent times now with the expiry of the planning permission for the site, but obviously now the growth deal is in the growth deal, but also we're reviewing our LDP, so we do need a clear position on how that moves forward. A strategic planning group will receive a detailed report on that, and there'll be discussion at that group, but I will take that away and make sure that there is a meeting to take place on that.
Thank you, Emlyn, and thank you, Reese. If there are no further questions, I'll go to the recommendations, page 15, 3.1, to consider the contents of the QT report and provide comments and feedback, which we've done. I agree that in future QT reports are circulated for information purposes as per paragraph 4.2 below. I would like this to come back in the new year sooner rather than later, if that is possible, Rian, because it could be a new council, a lot of new councillors could be there, and it's very important that they keep on top of this, and perhaps even dare I say, some sort of briefing on why this is so important to us. for new councillors?
Chair, yeah, there was a briefing for current members on the work of the North Wales Economic Ambition Board earlier on this year. So we can certainly arrange something like that ready for the new council. The next report scheduled onto the committee's forward work programme is, as Emlyn mentioned, the Q4 and annual report, which I think is now scheduled for the 7th of July. Which keeps it in line with that. So it's up to you with regard to that Q2 report in future, because the next one due anyway, it won't be for another 12 months on the Q2.
Okay, is there any members want to add anything there on my request? Okay.
Chair,
the information you requested from Emlyn today, I'll circulate to you. If Emlyn and James could get the information to me, I'll circulate that to you as soon as I've got the answers.
Yeah, it just needs to be a paper. That's it. Just the questions answered. Thank you. We could always reply to them individually should we feel we need to, and they'll probably be included in the next report.
Chair, can I come in, please?
Yes, sorry.
Yes, Rhian's more or less answered the question I was going to be asking in any case. Could the information be passed to every committee member? Because although we may not have asked a question, I think we would like to know the answer in any case.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I can put it into a document like that information brief, which I circulate. That's no problem at all.
Yeah, thank you. Emlyn?
Oh, thank you. And just to add, I know I've mentioned it before, but the senior officers from the regional portfolio office will be attending for the Q4 update. So you'll have an opportunity to directly ask officers from that regional team some of the questions that possibly I've been unable to answer today, but you know, we will obviously respond in writing on today's issues, but there will be an opportunity to ask them directly and challenge, obviously, at the next Q4 report, as Rhian mentioned. Thank you.
Right, thank you so very much for that. So everybody in agreement with that? Just raise your hand just so I can see everybody's happy. Good, good. Okay, we're going to go now to agenda item 7. Everybody. And who have we got in the, everybody out of the waiting room? Are they all here? Who do we have? Do we have Bobby?
Yeah, Councillor Bobby Feely's here and Nicola's here, and Councillor Hugh Hilditch Roberts is here.
Can
and
I ask,
Catherine Roberts.
I can't see Phil. Is Phil here?
No, this is a regional report, Jeanette. We do have Catherine Roberts, though, from the regional collaboration team.
Okay.
And many of you will know Catherine from when she was Denbighshire's head of HR.
That's a shame, because I was hoping he would be here so I could give him a bit more stick before he leaves, as you know.
Well, he will
like
be
a lot
here
of
later.
banter, Phil and I.
He will be here a bit later, Jeanette. You'll be pleased to hear.
Oh, that's great news.
So don't put your stick away.
No, I won't. So we've got Bobby and Lloyd.
So this is the regional partnership board item, isn't it? So you said item 7.
If you get going for us, then.
So I can get it going. It's just and I was going to say what Nicola has just said, in that Catherine Roberts has stepped into the breach to do the job that Bethan was doing, Bethan having been seconded to the Welsh Government. So this annual report of the Regional Partnership Board is required on an annual basis, as you know, within Part 9 of the Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act. That's part of the duty, and it reports on the activities of the North Wales region over the course of the year. The partnership boards are all about improving wellbeing outcomes for residents in the North Wales partnership. We have partnership with health, with the voluntary sector, with the local authorities, and and it works really well across North Wales after a bit of a bumpy start some way back many years ago. It was quite difficult in terms of we are the only partnership board in Wales that have 6 local authorities as part of their makeup. So it was a bit of a bumpy beginning, but it works much better now. You can see the report laid out before you, and if there are any questions, there's Nicola here, and I believe Catherine is here as well. So if you do have any questions on what is an annual requirement put before you today, they'll be here to answer anything more detailed.
Okay. I can't see any hands raised, Bobby, so I'll just start with what is the board doing and what are their actual achievements?
Do you want me to answer that, Bobby, or do you want to?
Well, how many achievements? You know, I'm not quite sure how many to pick out. Nicola, you might have them in order of importance, perhaps.
Well, you can give us a flavour, can't you, if you get the drift?
Okay, well, I'll make a start with one that I'm involved in and that I lead as a region, which is around the Children's Transformation Programme. And Christine is on today's call, and Christine is our representative from Scrutiny on the Bwyddinyddol group. And the other lead member, Councillor Hugh Hilditch-Roberts, is on the call as well. So that is a phenomenal programme which has led to significant developments across the region. Yeah. Not only in terms of developing a multi-agency team, but improving access and information around emotional health, well-being and resilience. So, you know, I could literally spend the entire meeting just talking to you about that one programme. When actually there are 4 regional programmes as part of the transformation. In addition to that, we have a number of working groups under the Regional Partnership Board that have achieved significant strides around integration and improvements in service through our Regional Commissioning Board, through the Regional Workforce Board, just to name a few. So yeah, there's so many highlights, Jeanette. I think, you know, we've got a number of annual reports that just pick out some of them, and this is one. I think what I would say is we were able to keep the show on the road in the year, even though we had COVID, and even though some of our staff were seconded through into other roles to support the kind of COVID effort, we managed to continue and progress many of the projects and the programs that we were delivering throughout that year. So yeah, happy to take any specific questions. I think Catherine's going to come in.
Yes, Catherine, do you want to join us?
Yes, thank you, Bore. Yeah, just to add to what Nicola said there, really, I think if you were to look across each of the transformation projects and the ICF projects that are ongoing across the region, there are hundreds potentially of different projects, smaller, you know, from small projects to fairly large projects, which either are on a local basis, an area basis, or some across the region. So it's really difficult, I think, because we're quite restricted in the format of the annual report to give you a real flavour of what's going on specifically within Denbighshire. But what I could do, if you think it's useful, is actually pull together those specific projects for Denbighshire so that you get a better feeling for actually what is going on, and you can see what's been achieved for the local authority as well.
That would be very useful. I appreciate that, Catherine. Thank you, and I accept.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? I want to bring Christine in now, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll turn off my camera just in case you lose me.
Thank you.
What I wanted to ask was the regional board, how agile have you been in responding to sort of challenges thrown up by the COVID pandemic? You know, clearly carers are suffering. They've had to take on additional roles to care for loved ones. You know, mentally, people, individuals, children have all suffered because of the lockdown and the consequences of what we've been through over the last sort of 18 months, 20 months. You know, reflecting back, it seems ridiculous. It's nearly 2 years since all this madness started. You know, how agile is the board? Are you just very much responding, or are you trying to now anticipate what the consequences of all this will be? Thank you.
So if I start on that one, so the RPB, the Regional Partnership Board, is a strategic board. So it's not operational in terms of taking any lead for what would be Denbighshire's operational response to COVID and issues like carers and so on. But at a strategic level, carers is also one of those priority areas, and there's a whole work stream around a regional approach to improving services and support for carers. But then the implementation at a local level is our responsibility. I think we have been incredibly agile in terms of, as a region, through the Regional Partnership Board, supporting each other through COVID, learning lessons and implementing those across the region where there are approaches to how we might work and how we might be able to make things better. So that it has been a forum for where we've been able to share, provide mutual aid support, but also our lessons learned. We did for a while move to what we call recovery reporting, which has always been a bit of a point of contention, because certainly for social care and health, which is not the only thing under the umbrella of the RPB, but is the main areas, we've never really been in a true recovery. We've continued to have to deal with and respond to the impacts of COVID as it's happening, but also the repercussions of COVID that have started to come through. So again, through the substructures, we've provided through the RPB regular updates to the regional emergency planning civil contingencies that have been dealing with COVID, updates around those priority areas, such as workforce, such as the commissioning, so issues around domiciliary and residential care availability and provision, issues around children's mental health and well-being. So that has continued for a number of months now. Although we've kind of come to a conclusion that we're now almost in, I think the term now being used is COVID plus. So it's COVID plus the day job. And I think that phrase was coined before we'd even heard of the word Omicron. So yeah, we're not, I think it would be false to say we're ever in recovery, but I think we are agile, we're flexible, and we are learning as we go along and applying that learning. Does that answer your question, Christine? Yeah, I think Catherine may want to add to that as well. Dio.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, Nicola's answered it there in terms of regionally how we've responded to COVID. But I think just to add to it is that there's some during 2020 and 2021, there are some real examples in the individual transformation programs of where they've adapted their plans to meet the needs of their population groups to do with COVID. So things like, for example, around the learning disabilities, setting up support groups for those that were in isolation and couldn't weren't able to mix and whatever. There's some really good examples of some of the things they've done there. And then with the care homes as well, around, you know, providing things like iPads so that the residents could speak and see their families and stuff as well. So I think definitely on a regional basis, there's no doubt that the partnership has supported each other throughout COVID, and that's probably helped in terms of setting the relationships and between partners. But definitely, as I say, on a project by project basis, they have adapted, and I think there's some real positive impact that it managed to achieve through COVID in terms of helping with that connectivity, I suppose, between residents and their families. Thank you.
To be honest, you're answering my question that started this very well. But I'm going to bring in now Rhys. And I've got you down, Emrys, next.
Yeah, I'm happy to let Emrys go first this time in case I steal his question. So Emrys first.
Like you keep doing today, you're on the ball. Okay, Emrys.
Thank you very much, Rhys. Thank you. Yeah. With reference to elements of the report. Thank you for the reports, by the way. Could I talk quickly about, turn quickly to page 90, Children, Young People Transformation Programme, and you talk about three levels: campaigning, researching, and developing. And there are general examples of what's happening. It would have been valuable in this section and other sections of the report if it were possible for us to have examples of specific cases. It's possible to do this. We get it in court, you know, sometimes in training there, where we are told of an event or a situation, and without using any names or anything, that we can see exactly directly the direct nature of the work, the nature of the program that's offered to young people who have faced more challenging times than usual over the past 18 months to 2 years, last 2 years, and are going to see more. I wouldn't suspect it having case studies in each section, but I refer specifically to the Children, Young People Transformation Programme. If I could turn to page 92. Southern Mental Health Transformation Programme, on the same trail again, the report is a general report that happens, it's a general picture of what's happening, but I'm asking what specifically has happened. Give us an example of something that has been offered to the young people who face this. And moving on to page 96, and I will finish with this. Unfortunately, 3.2. 3.1, first of all, as a result of COVID-19, engagement activities like forums, group sessions was not possible. We know that. 3.2, unfortunately, the steering group hasn't met since February, as it was unable to identify a chair for the group. Not being able to identify a chair, is that enough for the group to fail to meet? Isn't there, aren't there people who are able to step in when a situation like this arises? Thank you.
Okay, so I take your point about it would be helpful to have case studies, but as Catherine pointed out, the format of this report is determined by Welsh Government. So anything like that would have to come and sit outside. What we do have behind each of the 4 transformation programs are boards, and they produce reports on, covering lots and lots of detail, which do include case studies and examples, because we regularly report through to Welsh Government. What it wouldn't necessarily, though, have are Denbighshire specific examples in each and every one of those, because these are regional programs. I would see no problem, Chair, of any of those programs coming to future meetings of Scrutiny if there is a desire to know more about them. These programs have been running now, I think this is their 4th year. So, you know, there has been mention of them, reference to them in various different aspects of reports to Scrutiny, to Council, to Cabinet, because it crosses such a wide array of agendas. Catherine, in terms of the Social Value Forum, are you able to respond to that, Diolch?
Yeah, just to add in terms of the detail for each authority as well, one of the things we are looking at to start possibly in the next financial year is how we communicate and how do we keep partners up to date around progress as well. So we are talking to the chair of the RPB around improving that communication so that you're getting I suppose more regular and more relevant information for your area, rather than what I appreciate is a really high level reports once a year. So we definitely have a look at that. In terms of the chair of the social value group, I'll be honest, I don't know what the situation was in 2020 with the chair of the social value group, but I do know some of the groups did stop because of COVID as well. And not just because of lack of availability. What we, I think it was probably September time last year, one of the directors actually agreed to take the lead in the social value. I think it was meant to be a third sector chair, but the director agreed to do it. So we have got that meeting back up and running now. And it is meeting regularly, looking at what they need to be achieving, their priorities, etc. So I can't answer directly in terms of February 2020, but I can reassure you that that group is now up and running and that they are working on the social value elements of it.
Okay, thank you.
Respond very quickly. Appreciate that. Yes, things have moved ahead since 2020. I appreciate that as well, yes. And I also fully understand that as members, we would never be party to any meeting unless we need to be there by a portfolio, etc. With any meeting or any discussion that happens with people having support. But the value of case studies, even in a report like this, would help give me personally, and I'm sure other members as well, an insight to what's behind what is necessarily a generic report for the whole of North Wales. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Rhys, you've got is that an old hand or a new hand up?
Still the same hand.
Okay.
Okay, diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Nicola, also for that report, and thank you, Catherine. I'll turn my camera off. I am very, very supportive of everything that you're doing. Thank you for this report. But we are a scrutiny committee after all, and we are supposed to ask questions. So could I ask a question, please, on page 79. 6.6, 6.1 and 6.2. It says here that the 6 local authorities in North Wales pool funding to support this project. First question is the health board, do they contribute into this pool funding as well? And in 6.2, I see that the ICF fund and the Delivering Transformation grants is also pooled in this fund, and they can be large groups, large sums of money. Could I just ask, maybe I should know this, but I don't. Who holds this money on behalf of the partnership board? Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Very good questions, Rhys. Bobby, did you want to come in on that? Because you're laughing as well.
Well, not really, no. Well,
okay.
Just to say it's BCU that holds the funds. And yes, they are part of the partnership board, a very, I mean, it's meant to be an equal partnership, let's put it like that.
Yeah, so 6.1, Reese, there's been an ongoing history, I think it's fair to say, of the 6 local authorities having a fund that is contributed to support regional working around social care. And that was in place before we had the Regional Partnership Board, and that funded specific projects that were of importance to us. As things have moved on, so for example, the Regional Commissioning Board was established, and BCU did contribute to that and continues to contribute to it now. Then when we had the requirement to create the Regional Partnership Board, the local authorities used that existing pot to provide the support infrastructure to that work. I think it's fair to say there have been discussions over the years with not just health, but other partners as well, as to whether or not they should contribute and at what level, and whether that be money or in-kind support. And probably over the last 18 months, those discussions have led to an acknowledgement and an acceptance from BCU that they should be contributing to the work of the Regional Partnership Board. So they do that now. And that work, that money, not only provides the funding for the team, the regional team, the project officers and so on, but it supports the overall infrastructure of the Regional Partnership Board. Bobby's right though, the ICF and the Transformation Programme grant monies that come from Welsh Government under a badge of partnership monies go to the Health Board initially as the banker, and then that we have to move some of that monies around. Most of the transformation monies actually comes to the local, to us in Denbighshire, because we host the regional collaborative team. So we do bank that money, albeit it's not Denbigshire's money, and Steve accounts for it separately because it's not Denbigshire's money, but obviously it is open to audit and all of those due process things. Yeah, well, sorry, Bobby.
I was just going to come in and say, is it worth I mean, we could probably do an entire partnership scrutiny on this one subject alone, but there are big changes afoot at the moment. They're not decided yet, but even the ICF funding is about to change. I don't know how yet. We don't know the details yet, but that will come very soon, I think. So I think the Regional Partnerships Board there's been, as you can imagine, a white paper, a response. Things have not been sorted out completely yet, just using layman's terms. But this time next year, I think it will be probably a different setup to what it is now. This year, to a big extent, it's been about how they're going to change them, and also about dealing with the pandemic. I mean, a lot of the work of the board this year has been purely about dealing with pandemic-related issues. So there's my doorbell's ringing and nobody's in. Sorry about that.
Okay, all right, okay. Can I ask a question now? And I'm not sure you'll be able to answer it really, but I'm going to page 98 and 99. A lot of, which has got all the membership. Yeah. Nice to see Neil Ayling is still knocking about there at the bottom. I liked Neil, quite fancied him in the 2004 days when I was young. Younger. Give him my love when you see him, Nicola. I remember with Neil, took us on a trip to Liverpool to see the care housing, which we now have. He instigated it, and we all went on a little jolly. And I'm glad to see that those days have been fruitful. I want to ask on page 98, 4.1, and it says the COVID impact. And as I say, I don't think you'll be able to answer my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are you all aware of the impact COVID is having on health generally? And I'll make just a little example to say that. I basically am kept alive by having blood tests every 2 weeks to monitor my infection in my aortic aneurysm graft. So it's vital for me. And now all the phlebotomists have gone to help with the COVID vaccination scheme. And I've had quite a few now people contacting me from health saying they feel it's very compromising to them that although everything is being thrown at COVID impact, the general health that could come down the line from people like myself who are not getting the diagnosis they need. I've waited months for an MRI scan. I'm glad to say I had it late on a Sunday night of all times because they're trying to get the backlog. So I'm grateful for that. But it seems as if you can die of anything now as long as it's not COVID. And I'm not happy about that at all because my own life depends on it. And it took me quite some weeks to get a blood test because they're so inundated and short-staffed. And yesterday at 9 o'clock, my blood were cancelled. I think that is just terrible that they're putting my life at risk. I understand, and I'm quite aware of the vaccination scheme. I've volunteered to go and help, but I think to put so many patients at risk, cancer and many other ailments, is unforgivable. And I wonder whether or not they've got so bogged down with this COVID, which in the end will only come down to herd immunity. I'll tell you that now. I'd like to see you ask some statistics to show how many people have died over the last 2 years due to not being diagnosed. I think that's vital that question is asked, because I see every night the stats on how many people from COVID had died within 28 days of diagnosis. I am aware of health. I worked in it for 35 years more. But I've been contacted now by some consultants who are equally frustrated, as is nurses, because they feel that they're not being able to really practice their profession to what they've committed to. And they feel frustrated about it. So can you ask that question?
Jeanette, if you had been at the last partnership board, and I'm sure Nicola and Katrin remember, I asked almost word for word what you have just said to the Chief Executive Officer of Betsy Cadwallader, who is Joe Whitehead. And I just started rationally and ended up not very rational, but you know, it was just the way it took me. And I've had a letter yesterday from her asking to meet me to discuss all those things relating to health, which are having to continue and how they are having to continue, because as you rightly say, everything is pushed to one side. That's how it seems to the ordinary person in the street. COVID is just on top of the pile, and everything else seems not to matter. So she has fulfilled her promise to meet with me and discuss these issues. So yes, that was brought up at the partnership board, and yes, at the highest level, the health board are aware of those worries, which are very valid, and which people who perhaps aren't officers of health or officers in local authority or
just general
organisations,
public,
just the general public, everybody is asking these questions. Everybody you speak to is asking these questions, and nobody seems to answer. All the figures are about COVID, and it's like as if there's no other health problem in the world.
It's like I said, Bobby, you can die of anything as long as it's not COVID. And it's just getting ridiculous now. When you're actually having, I mean, I had a conversation at 8:30 this morning with Dr. Dobson's from Clarence House. I've sent questions to you, Evans, this morning, asking him to ask those questions at his special meeting. But nobody's doing anything about it. And to take all the phlebotomists away to do vaccinations is absolutely ridiculous. And this
Chair,
it's ridiculous.
Chair, I appreciate you feel like that, but I do think as a local authority, in terms of the prioritisation of health services, of the delivery of those in a public health crisis, and we are, as much as people may have their own views on that, we are officially in an alert level. All 4 nations, chief medical officers have agreed that. I don't think it's appropriate for us as lay individuals, we are not clinicians, to make public statements within a council meeting such as this around how the NHS in Wales is being directed to deliver its services. I'm sure we all have our individual views, and I respect each individual view, but as a scrutiny committee, we're here today to review the regional partnership.
Well, I'm going to overrule you there, Nicola. I'm going to overrule you.
I was just going to say, Chair,
the truth. It's the truth. And on 4.1, you're asking for the COVID impact. And I'm telling you what the COVID impact is, part of it. And I stand by that. And I don't care if I go to the press with it. It is despicable that we are forgetting every other health complaint. And that's my stand on it. And it says that on page 98. So I'm going by the report, Nicola.
Chair, can I just remind all members really that this meeting, even though we're on Zoom, it is a public meeting and it is being webcast live. So just for members to be aware, especially if you start naming individual people, I think it's only fair that individual people aren't named.
I haven't named anybody. Reece, you want to come in and then we'll move on.
Yes, please, Chair. I'm coming back to the recommendations there on page 77, and it asks us in 3.1 and 3.2 that we read and have read, understood, and taken into account that we note the work and progress. I'm afraid after the I didn't realize my question about finance was going to open such a can of worms, but I have much greater concerns now about the financial side than I did before. So when you come in a moment to the recommendations, I would like to amend those recommendations that we have read, understood, and taken into account and note the work, but also note our concerns about the financial situation of the Regional Partnership Board. I'd quite like that to be included, please, Chair, if I am to agree with this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Emery's last speaker now, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Thank you, Reece, for asking for making that comment as well. I agree with what Reece has just said now.
It's related to that. I feel as if the discussion's moved on. I need to bring it back a bit, I'm afraid. Bobby, in your response to Reece's question earlier, you did say, and I quote, "It is meant to be of an equal partnership." Let's put it like that. Now then, if your camera wasn't on, I would have taken that as read, but because I read into the tone of the statements as well, looking at your reaction, am I asking you, are they not equal partnerships, or were they not then?
They are an equal partnership. That's how it's written. That's the whole point. And I would say actually in the favour of the RPBs that they have done more for partnership working than almost any other. Yes, it was a bit difficult in the beginning because 6 local authorities is an awful lot with 1 health board, but we have ironed out those difficulties, and yes, it does work out to be an equal partnership, and it is so much better now than it was, shall we say, 4 or 5 years ago. So I would say we have had our ups and downs. I would be lying if I said we hadn't, but it is in a much better place now.
So I wasn't making too much of an assumption then when I heard the tone of voice as well as the reaction.
Okay, let's go to the recommendation now on page 77. Yes, 3.1, that the committee confirms that it has read, understood and taken into account the work that is required to be undertaken by the Regional Partnership Board. And 3.2, that the committee notes the work and progress in 2021 on the work areas that are being taken forward through the North Wales Regional Partnership Board. Rhian, did you make a note of Reese's comments to be added?
Yes.
And if you could read them out, I'll ask the committee if they agree to that to be part of the recommendation.
Okay, the committee confirms that it has read, understood and taken into account the work that is required to be undertaken by the Regional Partnership Board. I would then add a second point after that one to say, and that the committee notes the concerns about the financial situation of the North Wales Regional Partnership Board, and that the committee notes the work and progress in 2021 on the work areas that are being taken forward through the North Wales Regional Partnership Board.
Happy with that, Reese?
Yes, happy with that, Chair. And then if we are all here in a year's time, we will certainly go after that at next year's annual report. Thank you, Chair. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, okay. Is everybody in agreement then, please? Show of hands. Oh, that's great. Okay, thank you. Now, does anybody want to nip to the bathroom or get a quick drink? Or do you want to carry on? Thumbs up if you want a break.
Chair, are we still quorum? Because there's only 5 members left, isn't there?
I was just about to ask that, yeah. Christine. Sometimes you see it's hard because they turn the screens off, so you don't really know whether they're there or not.
Yeah, you've got got 5 members in attendance, so you are therefore quorate.
Yeah, it was nice to see Gareth Davis briefly, but he did leave us at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I know. We saw his message, didn't we?
Do you want to take a break for 5 minutes?
5 minutes break, everyone?
So we'll suspend the webcast.
I'll go and cool down now. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning.
Just to let you know, I was so excited at seeing you today. I had your name at the top of agenda item 7. And
Good morning.
Yeah, just to let you know, I was so excited at seeing you today. I had your name at the top of agenda item 7. And
Good morning. I'm doing it all. Yeah.
I was so excited at seeing you today. I had your name at the top of agenda item. I don't know why that's repeating myself, because that wasn't.
It's on a loop now.
I've never known that before. I know things go wrong, but that's ridiculous.
It's still going.
I don't know why that's repeating myself.
It's on a loop now.
I've never known that before.
Oh no!
Go wrong.
They don't have the webcast on their laptop in the background.
Oh dear.
Sorry, members,
Stop the webcam at the moment, I think.
Yeah. The echo is coming from you, Phil. I don't know what it is on your laptop. The echo.
Oh, Phil.
When Phil's muted, the echo seems to stop.
How could you?
So, Jeanette, I'll let you continue with the meeting and everything, but apologies. I don't know what the cause of the echo was there, but
okay. But are we all right to go now with the webcast?
yeah, the webcast and everything's up and running. Which I just muted Phil there to make sure that the audio loop wasn't continuing. But you're good to carry on.
Okay.
I don't know what the cause was, but if it happens again, I'll try my best to resolve it before it continues.
Okay,
Phil,
don't make me laugh now.
You were
obviously.
watching the webcast as well, were you? But yeah, switch that off. You switch the webcast off. Thank you.
Oh, it's nice and quiet now.
Not for long. Not for long, Phil. First of all, before we start, I wanted to say I'm really sorry that you're leaving us. I hope you take up golf in your retirement and that we can get together and have a game.
God, I used to play golf.
I really like the sparring with you, Phil, over the many, many years we've worked together now. And I wish to say sincerely, thank you for all that you've done for us and within your time in Denbighshire. Yeah, a big thank you from us all here at Partnership. And I'm sure on behalf of all the councillors that have had boxing gloves with you. Well, thank you for that.
Do you know what? It's been an absolute pleasure. Even with the boxing matches, it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you all.
Good stuff. But we've achieved things. That's the main
absolutely
thing.
We have. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have Bobby with us and we've got Anne. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jeanette, I'm going to turn off my video.
Okay, that's fine now. I know you're here.
Because unfortunately, we still can't rely on, as Christine was saying earlier on another subject, you know, we seem to have been forgotten. We never seem to get through a meeting without some problem or other. And just to add to what you said, we'll all be sorry to see you go, Phil. And I think I'm top of the sparring partner list.
I'm not quite the top, Bobby. No, I think there's one or two possibly worse.
Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not the worst.
The good thing is he's always taken it with a good heart. Always accepted it without.
Are you saying he's very? Are you saying he's very thick-skinned?
Yeah, or just thick. One, two.
Anyway, okay. So the report this morning is partly concerning the implementation and effectiveness of a sort of more what I can term holistic, across service, more corporate approach to delivering homelessness services, which is in line with Welsh Government's latest vision for homelessness and housing related support. It also reports on the actions arising from the internal audit of accommodation provision for the homeless, as per the referral by the Governance and Audit Committee in January 2021. We hope this will provide members with the opportunity to examine the effectiveness of the newly restructured service, which was implemented from April this year. The restructure of the homeless service was also done in line with the Welsh Government's vision for homelessness and housing, with the emphasis being on, intervention and prevention, and making it a wider, broader service in order to help more effectively. So the cross our services, the more corporate approach to addressing homelessness is so that this is not seen as just the responsibility of community support services, but a much wider situation. Obviously, housing, we've joined with housing, and without a shortage of housing, there wouldn't be any homelessness. So that's very important as well. So the report also provides members with an update of the actions taken on the accommodation provision for the homelessness audit report of last year. The internal audit follow-up report shows that although good progress has been made, 6 actions marked completed, 10 are being addressed, a number of actions relating to risk are still outstanding, despite very difficult circumstances. And I cannot compliment the staff enough for all that they have done under these very, very trying times. They have made every effort to implement all the actions within the audit plan. But I have discussed with audit, and they do acknowledge the progress has been made, but for the time being, our low assurance rating remains in place. And, you know, really, I don't know whether Phil and Anne, or Phil or Anne, want to add anything to what's been said, but mainly this particular meeting is for you to ask anything that may worry you in terms of this report, or, you know, make any comments that you would wish. So I'll leave it over to Anne or Phil to add to what I've said, and for the members to speak and say what they'd like to say.
Thank you, Bobby. Phil?
Yeah, not really a lot from me. I did promise Anne that I would sit in the background and just be there to support her, as she's the new interim head of service with responsibility around homelessness. Yeah, okay, thanks, Gina.
Okay, so Anne?
Thanks, Bobby. I think you've summed that up really well. And yeah, while it's disappointing that we have had, you know, we remain as a low assurance for the audit point of view, there has been a lot done since we were last at Scrutiny. We did go ahead and implement a multidisciplinary team. So we took the team through quite a big consultation and restructure. And we started implementing that as from April. So what we've been able to do is increase some resources into the team, whereby we've now got our own mental health practitioners, we've got a counsellor, we still have a social worker in the team, which we had before, and we've brought in some homelessness support practitioners to support those professionals, so that we are providing much more support wrapping around the homelessness, because homelessness isn't, you know, being homeless isn't the only issue that the majority of the people that come to us have got. So that's going well. We've just got one final post to complete, which is a secondment in from Betsy Cadwallader for a substance misuse mental health professional. And that took a little bit longer than we anticipated, but interviews have been taking place in the last week or so. So we hope to have that person in post early into the new year. But what has happened subsequent to that is lots of staff have moved on from the team because there's been opportunities for promotion, they've moved into other services, and we've been affected by the whole recruitment and retention issues that are going on across the wider sector as it stands at the moment. So that's where some of the issues have come from. We've continued to see the number come presenting as homeless to carry on at the levels that it's been at. We are sort of remaining somewhere between 150 and 180 people in emergency accommodation at any one time. And we have seen a significant rise in the number of under 35s actually presenting as homeless. Families have slowed a little bit, and we think that is because of the fact that obviously the Welsh Government stopped all evictions and the court process hasn't quite caught up yet with that process. So we anticipate seeing more families come through. However, we've got the we've got a whole corporate approach now to homelessness, and we're working with most other services across the local authority, and we've seen, we've seen some improvements on how we're progressing things. We've seen some, we've managed to get, I think it's about 99 households now have been accommodated through the direct lets that we've done with the community housing and the other RSLs. So that's been, that's been really good. And over 50% of them that have come from around community housing. We've actually moved some of the team that we're dealing with the private rented sector actually sit within community housing now, and they're just getting themselves established in that service, which means that, again, this came through the audit. We weren't as effective as we could be at managing our leased accommodation and what we had for the private rented sector. So the fact that that team now sit within community housing, they've got access to all the support that was already established within community housing. So that's been really good, and that team have really got settled. And the other thing that we've done there is we've provided some tenancy funding for tenancy support workers. So again, that's around prevention. So a lot of the stuff we're doing at the moment as well is to try and slow the numbers down that are coming into homeless. So we're really trying to get that upfront early intervention and prevention services in place. And the additional funding we got through the housing support grant earlier in the year is allowing us to do that. We're actually out at tender at the moment to try and get some provision in place to really do a proactive approach and getting families or households engaged to stop them becoming homeless. So where people are maybe starting to fall into rent arrears or have got some debt or they're in conflict with neighbours or whatever it is, to try and really be proactive and get that engagement to stop people coming into services, because we tend to just get them at the moment when they're in crisis. So they've had their notice or they've been evicted. So it's much more about that early engagement activity, because we need to turn the tap off to the number of families coming through the door at crisis.
Okay.
So that's the summary. I think the main thing for us as well is obviously we're looking at our own emergency accommodation to try and get better use, to get better quality emergency accommodation. But the biggest barrier at the moment is finding properties to move people into. That is the biggest barrier we've got. And of course, the housing market has changed significantly over the last 12 months. We've seen a massive increase in house prices. The rental market has gone silly, and that has really affected people that are sitting in our services. So do you want me to stop there, Jeanette, and take some questions?
If you will, because there's lots of questions obviously are going to be asked, and time is of the essence here. So can I ask members to ask their questions and be as precise as possible, please, so we can get as many questions in as we can. So I'm going to start with Rhys. Rhys, if you just knock your screen off so that we can hear you, which is the main thing.
I don't know, not everybody would agree with that, Jeanette. Anyway, you caught me on the hop there. I was going to take my turn. Okay, thank you, Anne, for that report. I know this is a scrutiny committee, but as a member of Governance and Audit Committee, we get very concerned when we see repeat low assurance being given to services. To begin with, I think you need to know that as members, we fully support all the hardworking people in the housing and the homelessness team. And we know the stresses they're under, we know the staff shortages, we understand about house prices and the knock-on effect that has had on rents and so on. So we're fully sympathetic to all of those things that you say, and as members we support all the good work that you're doing. But I'm still left with 3 or possibly 4 questions. The first question, I know that Welsh Government regulations changed and that we have to be in line with those, but was it wise in hindsight, and hindsight is a wonderful thing, to choose this time last year during the pandemic to implement such a big service change that would be disruptive? Now, we were told it wouldn't be, and yet on point 4.11, you refer yourself to staffing issues resulting from the recent restructure has affected continuity. So it has had an effect. So I'll ask all my questions first, but that's the first one. Was that an unfortunate time to have such a major reorganization? The second question is about the budget. Has the core budget for the service been cut? I know that there's a housing support grant, but it's not meant to be instead of, if you cut one of them and then rely on the housing support grant, then there's never any increase in the budget. So are we in Denbighshire actually cutting? I know we did one year. Are we cutting your budget knowing that it's going to be made up from the housing support grant? Because that doesn't move the situation forward at all. That's my second question. Third question, I read and I welcome that there's a corporate approach from the council. Could you give me some evidence, please, of what that corporate approach is? Because I don't always see that corporate approach when it comes to selling off council land and some of the decisions taken by the various groups within the council, such as asset management. I don't see that. So could you please give me some evidence of this whole council overall corporate approach? The fourth question is rather a naughty one to ask, I think, at this point, but does the homelessness service actually have to rent and pay for renting houses off the housing service, or homelessness actually paying out for from their budget to actually rent houses from housing? Because if that's the case, and I hope it isn't, if that's the case, then I'm not sure where this one council approach to this situation lies. If one service is paying for a service from another, that's something that I have been told. I hope it's not true. So thank you for those questions, and please be assured, despite the questions, we are a scrutiny committee, and that's why we're here to ask these difficult questions. But we are very, very supportive of everything that is done, and we know a little of the stress and the strain that everybody is under at this time. So thank you, Anne. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Reese. Very good questions.
Okay, so in relation to your first question, the consultation and the restructure, I don't think there's ever a good time, you know, there's never a good time when you want to take through big change. I think, yeah, we've lost staff in the process, but actually the approach we've now got through the multidisciplinary team is definitely having a positive impact on the citizens that we're supporting. So whilst we maybe haven't done everything to, and I'm going to say tick boxes for the audit, but you know, to get all processes and things aligned, I think the impact it's had on citizens and the services we're providing, I would say we're definitely seeing improvement, and we're taking that, you know, we're able to provide more support. That means hopefully their time in homelessness will be reduced and they will be able to sustain tenancies when we move on. So whilst we haven't been able to do everything in relation to the monitoring and the effectiveness of some of the stuff we've reduced, that is in hand and that has been progressing, and we've made progress since the last audit review was done. So there is never a good time. What I will say is what we're now having to do to in relation for the Welsh Government, it's actually put us ahead of the game. So the rapid rehousing model, the plans we've got to develop, we are actually in a better place than a lot of other local authorities. So I stand by, it was difficult, but I think we did it at the right time. In relation to the budget, our core budget has not been cut. And in fact, we have got a bigger team now than we've had for a long time. We cannot substitute the HS or housing support grant for core budget. The core budget is for the statutory services we provide. The housing support grant is for all the wraparound support that is there for housing related support. So we cannot use one to offset the other. The housing support grant can complement what we're doing and provide the wraparound support, but it cannot replace core budget. So reassured, we have not had our budget cut. The corporate approach, and maybe ask Liz or Phil to just come in, because although we're working corporately and we've got Mark Dixon on the call and Jeff as well, there is some bits there. So I will come back to that one. I think just on the final one, paying for rent, no, we're not paying, we're not leasing. We had some houses leased from community housing, but that was a long time ago. So we don't pay rent for houses that are community housing, and Jeff and Liz might want to come in at this point and just reaffirm that. Jeff, do you want to?
Yeah, just to confirm, I mean, it's the householder's responsibility to pay the rent, whoever's living in the property. Like I say, community housing has freed up some of our stock for temporary accommodation. Obviously, it's massively scarce resource and there's lots of people after those houses as well. So we're having to make a balance. And the other big thing to remember is all our income in community housing is from tenants' rents into the HRA. So that is strictly not allowed to subsidise homelessness services either. But it is the householder who pays that rent. So the tenant, the homeless family, are responsible for paying the rent in that property, and it's all part of them, monitoring that is all part of them getting tenancy ready for a permanent tenancy themselves. But it's absolutely, we're not making any money out of it. We're providing all these services as part of that corporate approach. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Liz or Phil, do you want to add something in about the corporate approach?
Yeah, if I may. God, probably almost a year ago, I think now, SLT through Graham, I think, obviously, and now as the chief executive, set up an SLT homelessness subgroup. And sitting on that is the head of community support services, Liz in relation to our community housing, Emlyn in relation to housing policy and public protection, and Steve Gadd in relation to finance. And the role of that group is specifically to look at accommodation issues and what we can do to, as Anne said before, to improve the quality and availability of accommodation, both emergency accommodation for people who find themselves homeless, but then also for move-on accommodation and permanent tenancy. So that's been meeting for a while. Some members will be aware of the work around RIL in relation to conversations about MySemlin. So through that group. And Mark's on the call. Mark Dixon, as Anne said, project manages a lot of this work. We have MySemlin, which should come on stream, I think, in spring next year. It still needs some work doing to make it fit for purpose. And obviously,
can I just ask you, Phil, what are you doing with MySemlin? What is it exactly?
Is it Epworth Lodge? Is it Epworth Lodge you mean?
Sorry, Epworth Lodge. Yes, sorry, not MySemlin at all, but Epworth Lodge I'm talking about, which will be a home for a temporary accommodation for families to avoid the need for them to use B&B hotels wherever possible.
Turn your screen off, Phil, because we can't hear you.
And then is it MySemlin? And then is the
we can't hear you now, Phil. Try again.
Is that any? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sort of.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear me. Oh, sort of. So is my getting confused? Is MySemlin the current older person's property that we're emptying and looking for future use for?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So in terms of single person accommodation over a short period, while plans are developed for the redevelopment of MySemlin. Again, is to avoid an overuse of B&B accommodation. I don't know whether you can hear me because you're all frozen on my screen at the moment, but
okay.
But hopefully that answers the question in relation to
the. Thank you, Phil. Okay. Anybody else want to make a comment on that? Emrys?
Sorry, it's not a comment on that. It's another question.
Okay, carry on then.
Yeah, okay, diolch yn fawr. Do you mean to try the Cymraeg?
Into Welsh. The report on Appendix 1 refers to having 80 units, new units in Drill by 2022, and I'm sure they're very much needed in the community, and it's a community with quite a large population there. We have homelessness as well in other areas, parts of the county, my own town, and there are other towns to the south of us as well, and me here. But I'm not personally aware of any units available in this community for any family who finds themselves, without any fault of their own, in becoming homeless. And the question is, are there units available in other communities outside of the more populated towns. I'm talking about the towns to the north of Denbigh, or are we still expecting such a unit? Are we still waiting for such a unit? Just it's just a comment to support the question. When somebody does find themselves becoming homeless, quite often the family isn't far. And the family far away, and the family can give somebody a lot of support, you know, if they are homeless, by taking them out of their community. Quite often they distance themselves from the distance from the family, and that support isn't there for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to answer that one, Jeanette? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And then I'm sure Liz and Mark can come in as well. So yeah, so at the moment we've been able to purchase this this accommodation in Rhyl, but we're acutely aware that there is always demand across the whole of the county, and you know, wherever possible, we try and keep people in the communities that they're in if we can, but that is not always possible. And unfortunately, at the moment, the level of demand tends to be in the north of the county rather than in the south of the county. But we do have some emergency accommodation in Llangollen. At the moment, it is mainly bed and breakfast type accommodation rather than anything else. But quite often in the south, we can try and reaccommodate quicker because there's usually more you know, we can source accommodation quicker, but it is still problematic. We have not got the whole of the county covered with emergency accommodation as yet, but it's something that we're looking at. So I don't know if Mark and Liz want to come in on the back of that one as well.
Yeah. Can I just come in there? Can I just come in there before anybody else? We are going to be running over time here now, so can I ask you to keep your questions really short and sweet, and answers equally so, please, so we can get it in on time. Thank you.
Do you want to go first, Liz?
Yeah, just to say that we're working with our RSL partners, Registered Social Landlord Partners, so that we can try and support people into new homes across the whole county. The biggest issue we've got is supply, which we're all trying to work on to improve access to social housing, but that's part of our answer to homelessness across the whole county. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Liz.
Yeah,
Mark Dixon, please.
Yes, my response was actually to Councillor Rhys-Thomas, and you were asking about the corporate approach, which is set out in some detail in Appendix 1 to the report, which I won't repeat. And there have been some references to the actions being proposed there, including the provision of in-house accommodation, of which the property in Rhyl, which Councillor Wynne referred to, is probably the first example. But we're not able to address all the need within a short time scale. So what we've done is prioritized and tried to address the need in terms of providing the right type of accommodation to address homelessness in the right place, which is why I know the sale of land you're referring to, but that type of development would probably be inappropriate to meet the needs of this particular client group.
Okay, Christine.
Thanks, Chair. Just reassurances, really. How quick can you get a homeless person off the street? How long are they in emergency accommodation? And what time scale do you have to get that individual into a more permanent accommodation? And the use of hotels, is this an efficient and appropriate for the individuals that are concerned? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we can get somebody in off the streets the same day. We can supply emergency accommodation almost straight away. And that tends to be, well, it is at the moment, bed and breakfast and hotel style accommodation, because that is all we've got access to. So it's not what we want to have, but unfortunately that's the situation we're in. If it gets to a point where in county we have no accommodation left that we can use, we can go out of county. We don't like to do that, but sometimes we're forced to. And sometimes that's maybe about circumstance as well, because For some people, staying in their own town is not appropriate because they're at risk. So we do have to move them, or being in county actually can be a risk. So to get somebody off the streets, we can do that the same day. How long somebody is in emergency accommodation depends on their circumstances and the availability of move on accommodation. So where somebody is maybe, you know, if we've got a large family, that could be quite difficult to find a suitable accommodation for. And at the moment, single young people under the age of 35 who are only entitled to local housing allowance rates, a housing benefit, doesn't meet the needs, it doesn't meet the cost of full rent. We're finding it really, really difficult to move single people into their own accommodation. So it can vary somewhat. I wouldn't like to put a time on that because it does vary completely. So that answered all your questions. The use of hotels is not what we want. The use of bed and breakfast is not what we want. But unfortunately, we've got no option at this moment in time. And even when we get some of your own accommodation, we've got a long way to go to get to a point where we're going to be less reliant on bed and breakfast and hotel accommodation. But that is where we're aiming for. Okay. That is the plans.
I just feel using bed and breakfast is totally inappropriate, and we need more little self-catering sort of smaller units where these individuals can be housed and not in hotel rooms, which seems crazy.
What we actually need is to be able to bring people in for the shortest amount of time and move them into their own accommodation as soon as possible. And that's that's the Welsh Government's vision. But you know, that isn't going to happen overnight. That's a longer term programme. So that is where we're aiming for.
We're aiming for that, but it's not happening at this moment.
It's going to take time, Jeanette. Absolutely going to take time.
Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm going to go to the recommendations now, which is on...
I think Councillor Pat Jones has got a hand up.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, Pat. I didn't see on a different page. I didn't see the hand go up, sorry.
It was, well, some of the questions have already been answered. I mean, one of the questions was about my Semlin, and how long will it be before we will be able to use my Semlin for the homeless? And another question I wanted to ask was, Joan and I had a discussion last week, and she'd done some digging, and she'd found out about the housing Teg are asking, I've got it wrote down, Joan's question, Teg research has been doing, and they've got some properties on the Aberkinsey estate, which they rent out, but you have to have an income of £44,000 before you can even apply for one of these houses. Well, how many people in Denbighshire earn £44,000 a year? That was one she asked me to ask, and it puts it out of the reach of many of our young families who are really in need of them houses. Some of them are £800 a month. I would like to know, is this right, what Joan has read and you know and researched? And also about my Semlin, please. Thank you, Pat. Can you answer those questions?
Yes, it's Mark here.
Yes, thank you, Mark.
Firstly, on my Semlin, we have actually asked for an item to go in the forward work programme for Real Mag for the next meeting, so we'll bring you a full update on that. And I think it's the 31st of January. The second point about Teg, the figure you've quoted, that's actually the higher end. Teg is intended for housing for people in employment who aren't able to afford market housing. So it's completely different from social housing. And the pre-qualification is that the household income has to be between 16,000 and 45,000. So the figure you've quoted is actually the top end. So, for example, the properties which Clwyd Allen provided in Gronant Street in Westrill for owner occupation, they would have been targeted at that sort of group where you've got people who have household income in that range, they're in employment. It's the classic aimed at people who are perhaps like a trainee health, a nurse or a police officer, something like that, that sort of level of employment.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. All right, thank you. Are you happy with that part?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sorry I missed you. So we will go to the recommendations again of 3.1 and 3.2. They're quite lengthy. Do you want me to read them out, or have you all read them?
Chair, 3.2 does ask you to take a decision there about the future reports on whether further update reports on progress with the improvements in the action plan are taken by yourselves or referred to the Governance and Audit Committee.
So you're asking us to agree with the internal audit update report, which we do. I gather we all do, yes?
Yeah, no, I'm not asking that. What that is asking is, should a future report come to yourselves or
well, I've already got that. I've got, I'd like to recommend it to come back to scrutiny in July.
Okay, and not go to the Governance and Audit. That's fine. That's okay.
Yeah.
Needs to be in the recommendation.
I've got to be mindful that in May there's an election and there'll be probably some new councillors there. And this is really a very important area that everybody should be updated on. So I was thinking that we bring that additional recommendation would be to bring this back into scrutiny in July. Is that acceptable with everybody? I can only see one thumb up. This is the difficulty when everybody turns off their pictures.
Yeah.
Ta-da. Okay.
Emrys, can you put your camera on, please?
Reese, Emrys, can you just, so I can see what you're agreeing to? Wave at me, throw things at me, whatever. Great, thank you. Super. So that we agree on the recommendations 3.1, 3.2, and that it will come back to scrutiny in July. Thank you. Thank you, officers.
Thanks, Chair.
And all the best, Phil.
Have a lovely
all
Christmas, everybody, and good luck for the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All the best
Bye
to
now.
you too.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, I'm coming back now to the agenda. Rian.
Yep.
Agenda item 8.
Yeah, this is your usual work programme report. Now you'll see on Appendix 1, which is page 107, that your next meeting is on the 10th of February and that you've got 2 reports, one of which actually was allocated to you by the Scrutiny Chairs and Vice Chairs group when they last met at the end of November. And it's to do with the population needs assessment. That's a report that's going to all North Wales scrutiny committees at around that time of year. So that report, and you've also got the one on the highways, grass verge, hedge maintenance and pesticide application policies.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
You've today added the homeless one to the July one, which I'll do in time for the next meeting.
Yes, please.
Now, actually, when the Scrutiny Chairs and Vice Chairs group met last on the 25th of November, they discussed the feasibility of holding non-urgent committee meetings from mid-March onwards due to the pre-election period ahead of the next local authority elections in May. And it was decided that no non-urgent, non-decision-making meetings would be held unless emergent business does come to light that needs a discussion. So in effect, your next meeting on the 10th of February will be your last one for the term of this council. There is an item already listed there for April, which we can move to July because it's the update from DVSC. So it might be a good item anyway for for new members to have an update on. So we'll do that, that's no problem. Appendix 2 to that report is the scrutiny proposal form. So if you have any items you want scrutiny to consider in future, it'll probably now be in the term of the new council. Please fill that form in. If you send it back to me ahead of the next scrutiny chairs and vice chairs groups meeting, which is on the 20th of January, I can ask them to consider it then. And then after that, you've got your Cabinet Forward Work Programme report there for you, just for you to see what they're discussing.
Yeah.
And the latest on your recommendations in Appendix 4. And the other day, I just circulated to you the information brief document, which also had in it an information report on domiciliary care, the external provision of domiciliary care, and the quality monitoring they're doing of that. That's a report you get every quarter.
Okay, thank you, Rhian. Thanks very much. Feedbacks from committee representatives. Christine, have you got any report back?
Yes, please, Chair. I'll just whiz my camera off just so that I don't break up.
Thank you.
The Children's Residential Assessment Unit, the project board met on the 16th of November. It was just an update, really, because I think Denbighshire officers were having real mega problems with network, which was down. The re-tender process has commenced on the 30th of November. The ground investigation currently is ongoing. The boundaries now are sorted out between North Wales Police and Colwyn Borough Council. Ingleside, that is the accommodation which is potentially will be temporary for children at risk or that needs treatment in Rydal Penrose. Ingleside's part of their complex. That is ongoing, and hopefully that they will be able to sort of bring that into sort of use in the spring, early spring. And staffing is ongoing in discussions. They're sort of trying to get integral members of staff in position. So that is ongoing in the background. So that's that. And then the stakeholder reference group for Betsy met on the 6th of December. Clinical strategy was one of the items. Obviously, they've sort of drawn up principles. They all look fabulous, but obviously that there are challenges. I did raise the Royal Alex, Joe Whitehead, who is the CEO. She did sort of respond saying that they are awaiting confirmation from Welsh Government with regards to the funding of this. So clearly it's still rumbling on, and things aren't just sort of clear as potentially they could be. Obviously, overall, Betsy's challenges are staffing and obviously the knock-on effect with social care, that patients are stuck in the acute waiting for packages of care out in the community. We look for planning into 2022, 2025, developing a 3-year plan. Denbighshire have obviously got challenges that they have an above average population of over 65s to 85s. And there's an impact obviously on COVID and how you sort of balance the two sort of, it's like we were saying before, wasn't it? Obviously the core of what's going on plus COVID on top of that. Primary care update, looking at GPs and how they're sort of organising dental services and looking at the long-term plan into community care. Targeted improvement, as Betsy has come out of sort of emergency measures, it's now looking at itself and how they sort of draw up a plan to move forward beyond the 3 years. And social economic duty, it's something that's been brought in by Welsh Government at the end of March, looking at equalities, diversity, social economic disadvantages, trying to get these principles embedded into the ethos of the health board. Any other business, they're clearly looking at the Holden report, which looked at mental health in Ysbyty Gwynedd, and apparently there is another report which Betsy potentially might not look very favourable. That's something that's obviously coming along the line. So that was it. Quick resume.
That was really good, Christine. And that means you brought me in dead on the dot, 12:30. Good girl. So it just remains for me to say, I wish to thank you all for the year of work that we've done so far. It's been really, really good, and I'm grateful for that. And I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and hopefully a very healthy New Year. So all the best to you all, and thank you.
Oh, happy Christmas to one and all. Have a lovely one.
Can I say, is that Diolch yn fawr?
Diolch yn fawr. Nadolig llawen a blwyddyn newydd dda.
Nadolig llawen a blwyddyn newydd dda I chi hefyd.
I've got my Christmas jumper.